All right, everyone, how's it going? Hello, Grimpy Coffee, Kalochi. How are all you lovely people doing? Right, let's jump straight into it, shall we? Welcome to Britain on the Rocks. The UK art scene seems to be in a state of perma-crisis. The former Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries instructed the government that £24 million a year was to be taken out of the Art Council's budget. A budget which, as one Guardian editor put it, is already peanuts. The post-Brexit situation is particularly grim for musicians. Facing red tape, post-Brexit, the industry has told the UK government that musicians and crew could, quote, find themselves unemployed en masse due to being unable to work. One survey in May found that 42% of musicians were considering moving to Europe to continue working, draining the legendary British music scene of its talent. The person I'm going to be speaking to today, I've known for years. He is one part of the four parts that make up the Parasocial, a fantastic band out of Deptford, London. Work magazine praised them, saying, "At last, a band you can listen to without having to put on This Nation's Saving Grace afterwards, just to cleanse your sonic palate." And I'm going to pretend that I know what that means. Their new single, KSG, is an absolute banger. His name is Tomer Krail. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Dan. It's good to be back.
Good to speak to you again. How long's it been now? Probably a year or so on here.
It's probably been over a year since the last time we spoke over the interwebs. We maybe saw each other in person before that.
I think so. And since we were talking about your solo stuff at that point.
Yeah,
And
that was before the Parasocials even existed. So yeah, it must have been at least 2 years then.
bloody hell. But it's going well, isn't it, with the Parasocials?
It's going
Clearly.
really well. Um, if if I didn't have the Parasocials, I'd be a lot more depressed about the state of the country. And I'm still depressed about that, but the Parasocials just makes me feel better.
Wow.
We're doing really well. We've just released a new single and a new music video that took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, mainly from our director, James Davidson, who's been in the editing booth for about 3 months now. Um, I don't know if you ever seen that thing about Brian Wilson when he was working on his masterpiece and he just kept going back to it and adding more things. But that's pretty much what happened with JD. But thankfully, he hasn't gone completely insane, and we did get a finished product, which is more than Brian Wilson could have said at the time.
I mean, I've seen the video and we're going to watch it a bit later. It's trippy, to say the least.
It's
Well,
it's
how's the reception
certainly.
been? Are people digging it?
I think people are liking it. I think a few of my friends, I've realized that they don't like scary things. I've said,
Right.
"What did you think?" And they said, "Honestly, mate, it was too scary to watch." So I'll take that as a compliment
That's
any
what you're
day of the
going
week.
for.
But I think so. That's part of what took so long with the video is it's got some AI generated imagery that happens on people's faces that creates this scary sort of smile. Um, Annoyingly, a film called Smile, a horror film, came out about the same time as we released the music video.
Yeah,
But
I've seen adverts for this.
so hopefully people will think that we've been paid by their promotional team or something, but that we have actually no affiliation with them.
I was just about to say
Um,
that's going to be like an unconscious, subconscious marketing boost, surely. That's going to help you.
Either for them or for us. I mean, as long as our lawyers can hold them at bay until our next single comes out, I think it will work out in our favor.
So KSG. So does this stand for anything?
It does, and there's a reason it's an acronym. When I first showed the song to the guys, I said it was called think at first it was called All My Time, and someone was like, "Oh, that's a bit like it sounds a bit like an old 60s song or something." And I was like, "Yeah, I agree with you." Okay, what about Kill, Spend, Grind? Because that's one of the lines in the song. And they said you can't say Kill, Spend, Grind. It sounds too edgy. Maybe sounds a bit too sexual as well with the grind part. So we debated it for a few hours. We came up with a compromise, which is KSG, which we think is quite fun.
I like it, and I like the song as well.
Thank you very much.
Before we get into that, you may have heard me mention the state of things in Britain for musicians isn't the best, to put it lightly. Post Brexit, of which it's a time period that we've been in for just under 2 years now. Sorry, just under 3 years now. My math is all over the place on this Wednesday evening. How are things? How are things going? I know you can't speak for kind of all musicians, but how are you finding
Well,
it?
I can certainly speak for myself and the musicians I know. And look, COVID happened, and it happened around the same time as Brexit, which is very useful for people who want to fudge the numbers of what is causing the most disruption in the UK economy.
Yeah,
But I think they both had a strong effect. And look, COVID, there were lockdowns. A lot of musicians were told, you know, get a new job. Do you remember this meme that went around about Fatima is
yeah.
is she's going to retrain into cyber. She just
Remind
doesn't know
everybody
it
now.
yet.
This was a poster that they put out of a ballerina um doing a stretch, and the message read, "Fatima's retraining as a, I want to say, it, maybe a coder."
I remember it saying in cyber. I could be remembering that. It was basically she's getting a job in tech or something like
Yeah,
that,
I'm sure you're right.
but she doesn't know it yet, which sounds ominous when you think about it. Uh,
Yeah,
it doesn't sound fun and whimsical. It sounds like she's been horribly fired from the ballet industry.
yeah. She's been
Um,
made redundant, and we're the only ones for some reason. The viewer is the one in on it. She doesn't know that this is about to happen yet.
and people thought it was in bad taste at the time, and I think it was in bad taste, and I think it's even in worse taste now that that is pretty much what's happened to quite a lot of musicians I know.
Yeah,
I met someone in the street a few days ago who has done a similar thing to me. Like I now have a job outside of music, which I never had before COVID. I always made money as a musician and an educator, and it was difficult, and at the time it felt like it was oppressively difficult, and um, oh, this is really bad. This will probably get better over time.
yeah,
I'd say for a lot of people now, it's not possible. Um, some people will still be making it work. Obviously, depends on how established you are in the music industry. If you are a successful recording artist, then yeah, you can probably still make money from touring, selling records and whatnot. But for the people who do well but aren't like internationally successful, I think it's become difficult to the point of impossible if you aren't getting money from somewhere else. And I'm not going to lie, for a lot of musicians, just anecdotally, that is a trust fund or rich parents. But for a lot of us now, it's working in cyber, which is
yeah.
is I'm working for a undisclosed tech company now. I know other people are doing the same. I have a few friends who are doing Ocado, delivery driving. Quite a lot of people doing teaching work as well, which I used to do a lot, but I think that's got worse as well. I can talk about that a little bit, but that's a whole other kettle of fish. But overall, I think it's got a lot worse, and I can't see. In a way, I almost feel better about some of the music I do now because I've sort of given up on trying to monetize it. But
Right.
I'm still doing that, but I just don't think of it as being uh, a source of income anytime soon, which is a relief, but also a bit depressing at the same time.
Definitely. And I mean, I do want you to talk about that in a bit more detail later, just to put that in perspective for everybody. So, this is from Statista, and this is probably difficult to really get an accurate number of this. But according to this, the number of musicians working in the UK in 2019 was 51 million. And then by 2020, it got up to 59. Oh, sorry, that's in thousands. Sorry, misspeak
I
there.
was going to say that would be a huge population of
Almost
musicians to
everyone you
compete with.
know is a professional musician. Did you know that? I'm here to reveal exclusively one in one in two Brits. So 49,000, 51,000 in 2019. By 2020, that was up to 59,000. We left the European Union in January 2020. But as you say, COVID also happened. Pandemic first declared a couple of months after that in 2020. By 2021, it fell 7,000 to 52,000. And now we stand at around 37,000, which is, across 2 years, nearly half of all professional musicians cut. And like I say, it's probably quite hard to pin down accurate figures on that, but that essentially reflects what you're saying here, doesn't it? It's a hostile environment for musicians, if you like.
I'm glad that you had the stats to back up my otherwise anecdotal experience, but
That's what I'm here for.
it
It's basically the
it
only thing I'm here for.
it rings true. It rings true. I think anyone who's got musician friends will agree if they listen. Otherwise, they are probably incredibly successful or incredibly, already wealthy, which is fine for those people. But
Yeah,
I think you see it badly in acting as well. And I pretty much every interview I see with an actor now mentions, oh, you went to Eton or some other school, and how do you feel
right.
about the fact that actors just really isn't that representation anymore? Which is again, it's not the end of the world because it's not like not having any doctors or anything, but it's still, I think it's bad for representation, right? Like, uh, we want people from diverse backgrounds. Imagine if the Beatles had never had the money to get into making music, or the Arctic Monkeys or anything like that. I think it's sad.
Yeah, and you say imagine a different kind of society. I think part of the problem is, and one of the reasons it doesn't get taken seriously enough, is that when you don't have enough doctors, when you've got, shortage of GPs like we have now, shortage of dentists like we have now, you can quite easily, or, plausibly start to put a figure on the consequences of that and how that affects all kinds of various health issues. But with music, with the arts in general, I suppose it's quite intangible, or you'd be hard pressed to put a figure onto how much is being lost by not having that kind of resource. And like you say, how could we ever possibly track back the impact that would be lost if the Beatles never existed? But you can kind of imagine how things would have played out. All of the different bands that wouldn't be around today.
Are
It's
you saying imagine there's no Beatles?
I'm almost saying, imagine there's no. It's easy if you try.
Yeah, sorry. Um, I was thinking about that film that they did about the world where there was no Beatles as well.
Is that is that a film?
There's a film where someone goes back in time and the Beatles never existed or something, or he's in a parallel universe. I've not seen it. I remember hearing the concept at the time and thinking, is that too specific a concept to make a film about? But
I mean, that is
I
very
wonder if they
specific.
I wonder if they did any number crunching because yeah, like you say, there's no tangible way of really calculating how much did the Beatles bring to the British economy. But I think I'm safe. It's safe to say it must be billions, right?
Oh god, yeah. I mean, yeah, music, film, everything. It's touched kind of every single element of the arts. I don't even know. I don't know how you begin. I
So
really
it's
don't.
important to, and again, I think something you said about the doctors, like at a time where we're having such huge problems all over the country, I feel a little bit. silly moaning too much about, oh, I'm an artist and I have to work now. And a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, that's me too. But and I don't think it should be compared to, but that's always a lowest common denominator argument you can make, right? And before long, you do have tangible impacts on your country's culture.
Yeah.
And if it has to be about money, I don't like always having to like justify things based on it made loads of money, but I'm pretty sure the music industry brings in more money to this country than the fishing industry, and yet
Wow.
we hear a lot about fishing in the news because that's a group of people that are politically seen as viable, right?
Yeah.
It's a and look, we should defend the rights of fishermen and all that as well, but like, why, if we're doing it based on conservatism and their ideas and their values, which is how much money you're making, it's still incredibly important.
Yeah. And I think you're right. And they're an incredibly vocal group of people, and obviously quite essential to that Brexit vote. Um, but we're also very, very vocally unhappy when we did leave in January 2020 and they were suddenly faced with all this kind of red tape. Um, and that is a neat segue, unintentional, into talking about musicians' relationship with Europe now. I don't know if this is something, a stage that Parasocials are at yet, but how do you feel about the prospect of touring, and how much more difficult that is post
So
Brexit?
I'll talk about this a little bit. Now, I have done some music work in Europe, um, but I wouldn't say of the musicians I know, I know people who it's a big part of their revenue and what they do. And I have played in Europe. I've worked in Europe a few times, done a few gigs, a sort of mini jazz tour, probably about 8 years ago. And at the time, it was so easy to do that I don't remember even thinking about it. We just did it and we got paid, and there was no issues or anything. I think now, and look, the Parasocials, we're very much like a sort of British band at the moment. We play mostly in London. We're trying to get a bit further afield. We'd love to play in Europe. I think we don't even consider it because it's such a financial black hole now. I mean, we'd have to get licensed for every country we went to. We'd have to get we'd have to apply and come up with different rules for every country we went through. On top of that, it was already not a great way to make money before COVID and before Brexit, but I think now it would be a case of we'd have to think, do we want to go on holiday to Europe?
Yeah.
Do we want to pay the money we would pay to normally go on a holiday, maybe a bit more, do a tour of Europe just because it's a laugh?
And you may not
And
even break even.
I'm saying we'd put money in. We'd be like,
You'd
this
lose
is like
money.
a holiday for us or something.
Yeah.
So, which, again, if we did it, we'd have fun. Just like if we went on holiday, and we love playing. It's not about making loads of money for us, but at the same time, it's sad that's just I don't even think about it as a money making endeavor. You'd have to
Yeah.
be fairly successful, I think, and have a team that was taking care of stuff for you to make that a financial win. It's not like you're Del Boy and it's like an entrepreneurial thing you could organize. And I think 20 years ago it was. If you had a band together, you were fairly popular, you could get a van, tour Europe, and actually make a decent packet and maybe put that towards studio recording or, paying your bills or whatnot. But
Yeah.
I think now, unless you're fairly successful already and you have someone to take care of the paperwork for you, it's just oh, that would be a nice thing to do as like a thing we pay to do rather than a money making endeavor.
Wow. So it is really just, it would have to be so beneficial in terms of promotion, I suppose, that you'd have to just be willing to put aside all kinds of profit considerations
And
if the stage was big enough.
yeah, and it's on top of all the other things you do. I mean, there's a joke going around like working musicians that you hear, which is oh, this gig doesn't pay any money, but it comes with good exposure. It's like, oh, my rent is 5 exposures this month, so that's fine, I'll take it. If it was just one thing, if it was like everything else was profitable,
Yeah.
and this tour was going to cost us some money, but might actually push us into the next level, that's
Mhm.
great. But right now, it's oh, recording music. That's just going to cost you money, and you're not
Yeah.
going to make much money out of it unless you're Ed Sheeran. Okay, doing gigs in the UK and touring, not really going to make you much money because most places don't pay much money, or it's ticket sales. You get like a pound out of a £5 ticket once you've sold 20 tickets for the venue. So okay, how are we going to sell 100 tickets in a city where we've never played there before? That's another thing. And then it's like, oh, touring Europe. Okay, so it's just things toppling on top of each other that
Yeah.
don't make you any money.
Yeah.
So it's just the straw that breaks the camel's back, to be honest.
You mentioned Ed Sheeran there, and I had a wry smile because the last time we spoke at length about streaming platforms. And again, it's a big profit consideration, and there's pretty much widespread acceptance that they don't give enough of the cut to the creators that make them what they are. And I'm pretty sure when we spoke about that, the go-to example at the time was Ed Sheeran too, because I think this was the year that he had something like 10 songs of the top 20 or so, some obscene percentage of the Spotify streams were going straight to his work. And it's not to, I'm complaining like it's a conspiracy, but it just really was an example of how it's um I'm not sure what you call it, but maybe an iceberg model or a mountain where you've got a small percentage of people get all of the exposure.
Yeah, I mean, I like to rag on Ed Sheeran. Most professional musicians do. I actually don't think he's such a bad guy, and some of his songs are quite catchy. But I don't think he's gaming the system either. I think the problem is the system is designed to be a little bit of a monopoly, where like the winner takes it all. And the way Spotify actually divide up the money, we probably talked about this last time, but it works. Say if you pay £10 a month and you only listen to the Parasocials, we don't get £10 a month. That £10 gets taken, put into a big pool, and then the top grossing artists take the top. So you actually get less money on Spotify if you have a small concentrated audience that listens a lot than if you have a big audience that listens to you once or twice. So it just means people like Ed Sheeran who have catchy songs that have a lot of promo behind them, they can take the big part of the pie. And streaming is another area where it feels like we've been talking about changing it for a long time. I see a lot of crypto sort of startups talking about how that's going to change the music industry with NFTs, with music, and I've never actually seen the explanation of how that will work, but I see where the mentality is coming from. If someone explains it to me one day in a way that makes sense, maybe I'll get behind that. But
Yeah.
right now, it doesn't look like there's any change to Spotify's monopoly.
So you don't think anything's changed since we last had that conversation in terms of
I
fairness?
I haven't looked in the news on it, but I don't think. I mean, I can get up my recent DistroKid earnings, which is like a distributor that you use to they tell you about it. Yeah, if I go to bank right now and let's look at how much money Karmatos made. It's
I
made
think a lot of
20
people will
bucks
be wow, and so that time period is
over a year now.
wow,
um,
wow. That
and
is
I think if I go to there's actually a tab that says excruciating detail. And I think they say that so that they don't want you to look. Okay, yeah. So Armatos got a play the other day from America, and I got paid for it 0.004, uh, probably 0.5 because it rounds up, 0.005 cents.
wow. Okay, I mean that is obscene.
It's amazing I made $20 because I don't know if I don't want to do the maths right now, but if you
Yeah,
divide 20 by that number, I think it's a big number.
Yeah, that's quite impressive benchmark to hit under those circumstances.
So when I told the boys, we were like, "Wow, that pays for about 3 pints at the pub." So one of us is going to have to pay. But luckily, our drummer doesn't drink, and we had a nice night out that night. Um, but otherwise, yeah,
I
doesn't cover the
mean,
cost of recording. It's not great.
doesn't touch the sides. Um, well, I'm meant to do it, but shall we show the folks here the video for KSG, the aforementioned trippy as fuck, scary video for KSG, and then we'll come back to you.
Let's do it.
All right, let's do that. Folks listening, we will check back in with you in a few.
Well, you're making a fool of yourself, it's plain to see. I'm trying to stop all this corporate noise from bothering me. Well, you're making a name for yourself, I must concede. Can we stop all this corporate sound from bothering me? Oh, my time. Kill, spend, grind. All that's left sense of that. Well, there's a hole in a crater in the ground for all to see. I'm trying to stop all this corporate noise from bothering me. Well, we're making a name for ourselves, we all agree. I'm trying to stop all this. Stop. Oh, my time. Kill, spend, grind. All that's left sets
All right, welcome back.
Good to be back.
That's the first time I've seen it on a big HD screen. It's a beautiful video.
Thank you very much.
Good work there
Well,
by James Davidson.
no, that is all JD's idea. It's completely his brainchild, and yeah, we owe a lot to him.
So, what's next then? What are you excited about? The Parasocials.
Well, we played our first gig properly out of London the other day, and it went really well, and we got a whole new heap of fans. So we're looking forward to
And where
trying
was
to
that
get
gig?
out of the. I was in Guildford at a great venue called the Boiler Room. Had a lot of fun opening for a band
Nice.
called Courting.
Very nice.
And small towns are fun because like London is a great place to play, but like there's a lot of cool stuff here. So when you play to people, they're like, "Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, we've seen a lot of cool gigs this week. That was also cool." While you go to a smaller town and you get a really excited reaction from people because there might not be as many bands passing through, or maybe there are a lot of local bands that are still probably really good. But they get excited when you come from out of town and they show you a good time, which is all you can ask for, really.
So, do you think people are flocked back to it? Do you think people were thirsty for gigs once everything opened up again? Back to normal.
I
I know
think,
it's not normal, but you know.
yeah, it feels a bit weird saying that because yeah, it's definitely not normal. There's COVID going around now, and there's there's huge problems going on. But I think people need. I think there's a lot of talk about the metaverse at the moment, but I think people have had a lot of that over the last few years, and they want to get out. They want to feel the sweat, the
Yeah.
excitement of live performance, even if that sweat has minute COVID-19 molecules in it. But that's where you get your vaccination.
Get vaccinated, folks. Not gonna go down a rabbit hole into an anti-vax podcast. Although, what a way to do it that would be. Halfway
Yeah,
through
I mean,
episode 2 of this thing, just take it completely in that direction and never look back. Like
you
Joe
always said you were
Rogan.
a fan of Alex Jones, right?
I've always said that. I've got my Alex Jones poster just off screen. Kiss that before I go to bed every night.
He's going to need all the revenue he can get from merchandising with the massive bill he's been stuck with, right?
Something like, I want to say 100 million. I'm pulling that figure out of nowhere, but it's a figure that is obscene.
It's
Although
not true
some people think he can pay it.
statistically.
There's some weird maths. I don't think like his wealth is public, but people think that he will be able to pay it.
Is it like student loans where he'll just have to make payments for the rest of his life and then hope it expires?
Yeah, hope that he can move to another country and they'll just go, eh.
He'll
Um,
struggle with that though, as such a massive bigot. But yeah, I thought that was a bit of cosmic justice, which I like to see.
oh God, I mean, for years we've watched him just lie through his teeth and endanger people's lives, tell people to, take all of these weird supplements. COVID was really when he started to make bank, I think, because he was sponsoring all of these. He was on the ivermectin hype and all of these unfounded cures for COVID symptoms and COVID itself, and then obviously it all accumulated in Sandy Hook, where he was swearing blind that people who had children had been shot to death were actors. I mean, it's comical, but to say it, but you really can't. You couldn't make it up.
No, it would be too ridiculous to make a character that foul. But I mean,
Yeah,
we could talk about it for hours. I think there's a lot of interesting culture war hypocrisy there. I mean, why would you take another type of unregulated medication? Like, I get some people being like, right, I don't know how medicine works. I just don't want any of it near me.
yeah,
Like, it's not an opinion I agree with, but I can be like, fair enough. But if you're just happy to take one thing but not another, you're just an asshole. Like, you're just someone who's decided an opinion politically, and I think that's one of the worst things you can do. We all do it to a certain extent, but you've got to try and like objectively look at the situation. If you don't want to do something, you don't want to do it. Like,
yeah,
more power to you. But like, oh, I'm gonna take brain stim or whatever Alex Jones sells me, but like, I'm not gonna trust like the World Health Organization.
You're
It's
so
just a bit
right.
ridiculous, isn't it?
It's, if they want to talk about how new these vaccines are, and fair enough, in one sense, you can argue that there's some kind of newness to them, even though they're based on science that's obviously much, much older. But why would you trust your one that's supported by a handful of people over the one that everybody around the world is taking and seems to be getting better? It just doesn't make any sense. Maybe you'll have to come on the stream separately and we can have a whole conspiracy chat for hours.
Oh, I'd like to do a few conspiracies because there's one or two that I don't mind getting my fingers stuck into, but most of them I think are the medicine ones are a bit ridiculous. Like the big scandal is just that pharma companies make loads of money from new expensive drugs. That's the
Yeah.
conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they work, sometimes they are bad for you. Like when all these prescription pills got subscribed to people, and half of America gets hooked on opioids. But that's not a conspiracy. You can find well, it is, but you can find out genuine information about it. But
Yeah. But
I
that's not
guess
what
it
people
comes down
want,
to
is it? That's the
yeah.
obvious answer. Is the obvious conspiracy isn't what people want. They want to be in the know about something that nobody else has known. I interrupted you
It's
there.
like no, it's all right. It's like if we ever find out aliens are real, it will become boring, and then it will all be about oh, what thing doesn't actually exist,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
plenty of
exactly.
animals are exciting. I think I read that gorillas, they didn't think gorillas were real for quite a while. They'd heard reports about them, but no one had ever no one from the West had seen one. And they found them. They're like, oh, gorillas, they do exist. Now no one really cares that gorillas exist, but back in the day they were pretty much Bigfoot.
Well, we've gone the other way. We literally are trying to make people care about the fact that they're endangered. So we've gone from holy shit, what are these incredible things to well, if they die, they die. So
They're like
pretty
big humans, right? Like what?
bleak.
Who cares?
Yeah, yeah, they're just other people that we don't give a shit about. Um,
Pretty much.
you talked about the metaverse, bring you back to that. So, to me, the big irony is that Zuckerberg's ingenious concept of a virtual world where we all live in, as you say, happened during the pandemic, but at the tail end of it, seems to me that his eureka moment came about a year too late. Um, and maybe if it was there about a year earlier and he decided to funnel all of the resources of his, however many $1 billion company into that, we might have actually been interested, whilst we were still interested in Clubhouse and all of those, apps that we were getting the hang of and doing virtual parties. Now, I think he's in a difficult place.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think if that technology had been up and ready to go, like work from home, all those. I mean, we did quite a few little live stream parties, right? And we'll probably still do a few in the future, to be fair. But I'm kind of on the fence about this meta thing. I do think probably at some point in the future there will be a meta. Well, there is a metaverse already. It's just it's 2D. Like I have to I can tap on the screen and see you, but like
Yes.
at some point, if they do a better version of this where I can actually see a 3D version of you and it's not too much hassle, I don't think putting on the big headset's going to do it. I think that might be it's just too far for people. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and I think there's this. I don't know what you would call it, but there's obviously a period of time where we have to get used to new technology, where we just think it's weird. Somebody in the Times, I think, said something. Well, I'm going to paraphrase, but the stand first of this piece was something along the lines of only weirdos would use the metaverse now as it is, um, and I think that puts us so far from the point where you're logging in unconsciously. And that's obviously the point anything needs to get to until it can make a whole lot of money and a whole lot of difference, is that it needs to be almost subconscious. Somebody in the live chats pointed out quite rightly, it's not Zuckerberg's eureka moment, it's his passion. But of course, the concept is credited to, I'm digging into my brain here, a man called Neil Stevenson, who
Yeah,
wrote
I have
a
read
book
this.
called Snow Crash.
Yeah.
And I think this concept appears in that. But obviously, Mark Zuckerberg wants this to become, as Facebook is, something that we use without even really thinking about it. It's a go-to household concept. And it seems like we're a long way from that. Do you think if you were called up to play a gig in the metaverse, would you be excited for that? Do you think that's a future?
Uh, I see the Apple posters around, and I just keep thinking that they look like bad video game characters. Like, bro, have you seen the Apple poster I'm talking about?
This is the one that they're doing now about how it's going to work in the real world. Surgeons will be able to use it and things like that.
Yeah,
Is that
I
what you
think
mean?
the Apple concert is
Oh,
what they
sorry,
did
ABBA.
in.
You said. Sorry, I missed that. Yeah, ABBA Voyage.
Oh, what did you think I said?
I thought you said just said ad. I didn't hear
Ah,
the
okay.
second
No,
part.
no. The surgeon thing could be useful actually. There's a few little things I hear about, like I saw the Google one where they've got glasses on and you can see a live translation of what someone is saying in a different language. And I thought
Wow.
that's actually useful enough so people might buy like a set of £200 glasses. They won't buy a big headset, I don't think, but they will buy the glasses. And the surgeon thing I heard about that is I think that's another one where it's like, oh yeah, if people can do like proper medical diagnoses over that could be useful, that could save money.
Yeah.
The other thing is where they were doing a concert, right, where it was happening everywhere at once, and they were playing in a virtual setup, and it was them looking young. And I thought it was an interesting idea, but I'd probably rather see ABBA as just a bunch of old people on a stage. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's the point, right? That's the fun part of live music. Um, is but a metaverse would be better than me just playing my guitar on a live stream, sure. But concert is still going to be better than that, I think,
Yeah.
until the technology gets so good that it's in our brains. Like, and I think that's probably 50 years away, right?
I mean, it's hard to see how we could ever get to that point. The first thing I think would be to just bridge that graphical gap between. To me, it's always been absurd that I can buy a video game for a tenner that's going to look 10 times better than the metaverse looks. I mean, if this is meant to be the future, how long before it looks anything like past the point of a PlayStation 1 game?
That is the problem, isn't it? And then you think about it, and you're like, oh, it takes them like what 10 years now to make a GTA game.
Hmm.
That's why the graphics look good. Like trying to make a thing that everyone is on at once and goes on the
Yeah.
internet and has like good server times, because it let's face it, on GTA, if you play it online, the lag is pretty bad sometimes.
Oh,
If
yeah.
I'm trying to have a conversation with you and it's like we're in the same room, the lag's got to be like non-existent for it to feel authentic.
Completely
So
real time, no lag whatsoever in your movement, completely interactive, completely traced movement. It's really hard to think how they could ever get there.
I don't want to be one of those people who says like, there's a famous quote from the CEO of HP back in the day, or no, Hewlett Packard, and he was like, "Oh, I think you only need like 5 computers in the whole world. That'll be enough to like sort the world out." And that was obviously a famous, it's easy with tech to underestimate.
And
I
like you
think
say, nobody
I
wants
wouldn't,
to be that person.
yeah, I think there's a possibility, but like we could get taken by surprise. Like the iPhone took people by surprise. I think, you know, wireless headphones have kind of caught on much quicker than we thought. Computing has got a lot better quicker than we thought, but
Yeah.
I think the metaverse is still it's already here. It's already here, but the metaverse in the way they're describing it, I think, is probably still 20 years away. I
Yeah.
shouldn't have committed to an actual number. Now people will quote that
Ah,
back to me.
on the
When
record,
it,
in HD, with your fancy camera, this is the perfect evidence for people to throw back in your face. This is the receipt, as they say, as the kids say.
did you ever see that Facebook group that's like posts that aged badly?
No, I haven't seen that, but I am going to now.
I think the headline one is Hillary Clinton. It's like "Happy Birthday to this future president," which feels really painful in retrospect.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about conspiracies. America hasn't really moved on from that moment. And
It's a
pretty
shame.
soon, sorry, you go.
Conspiracies, I think, were fun in the 90s, right? Um, and when we grew up, it was
I
just a
think
bit
that
of a
might be the
laugh.
pull-out
Like
quote from this whole interview.
they were, and now it's just like, oh, most people don't believe in the fundamental proofs that actually bind our society together. That's worrying now rather than fun.
One of my favorite quotes about conspiracy theories I heard recently was, I didn't realize this, but Taylor Swift music and music videos have a whole world of conspiracies, and she plays into this. This is part of how she's a marketing genius. You know, whatever you think about her music, she is very much in tune with how it gets promoted, and she plays into this, and she kind of hints at different things, and then it, you know, actually gets revealed that she was hinting at something. Somebody said that Taylor Swift is like QAnon for people who were perfect in class. No, I got it wrong. I've misquoted it. People who are a pleasure to have in class. That's funny.
Are you looking it up?
I fucked it up. No, I just misremembered it, and it could have been so great.
Well, go on. I'm gonna pretend that I had temporary amnesia. Though I actually thought that was quite good as well.
Oh, so the best quote I heard about conspiracies recently was that Taylor
Oh yeah.
Swift, who, you know, is very in tune with her fans and the conspiracy theories that are around her music. Somebody said, quipped on Twitter, that Taylor Swift was like QAnon for people who were a pleasure to have in class.
Did my dad tweet that out? By any chance? He wouldn't know who Taylor Swift was, to be fair, but he was a teacher. So
Oh, I think
imagine trying to get him into Taylor Swift. That would be a mammoth task.
I think dads that are into Taylor Swift are immediately treated with a healthy amount of skepticism and suspicion. I say healthy, probably not an amount that is deserved, because
No,
somebody
I'm sure
any
it's
age
fine
should
to
be
be
able to
into it,
like
but
any artist. I feel like I took that to a weird place.
no, it does sound like the acts of someone who's trying to ingratiate himself with teenage girls, which could be harmless, could not be harmless. I'll leave it up to the chat to decide.
We'll leave that to the comments. How are we going to dig ourselves out of this hole? Um, Talk to me and talk to the listeners and the viewers at home or wherever they are. It could be anywhere. It could be in a ditch with us trying to climb out of their own
Be at the beach.
innuendo hole, or at the beach.
Innuendo hole. That's another.
Oh yeah, let's not
Oh,
let's not go with that. Let's go with uh metaphor junction. Are you happy with that? You're smiling.
it sounds like a play by a unknown but soon to be quite popular indie playwright.
That's what I'm going for. That's pretty much the level I'm always at. Um, right. So for the people at home, then, what can they do to check out the Parasocials music work? Where are you sending them?
The best thing you can do is buy our EP on Bandcamp. That is the only work we have out on Bandcamp right now, because we only like to put complete stuff on there. But buying that would be great. Having a listen to us on all the platforms is useful as well. I know I said I get paid 0.0000004 a play, but every 0.00004 cent helps. So
Yes.
that's useful. We've got really cool T-shirts. In fact, go on. I'm doing the full Monty.
Oh, this is brilliant.
You want to do a song for me?
You've planned this so well.
Ba-ba-da-ba-dum. Oh yeah, that's a T-shirt.
Look
You
at
can
that.
buy one of these bad boys.
Where can they buy
I
this?
guarantee you'll look as good as I do in it.
Can they get this on Bandcamp?
I should. Good point. I should put a link to that on Bandcamp.
Where are they going right now for these shirts? If they want to order
I'm going to
one
put the link
for Christmas or for any occasion, non-secular.
We have our
secular.
Linktree. Linktree is a great website. It puts all your links into one. I sound like a YouTube advert for Squarespace right now. I'm not being paid by Linktree. It's really useful. I will put that in the chat.
There you go.
It keeps coming up with your terms of service every time I try and chat something in. It says no hate speech. Do you have a problem with that, or
something you put into the chat isn't working? For the people listening for the people listening to the podcast, this doesn't make any sense to you. But you can go to Linktree /the Parasocials. And I'm sure if people search for the Parasocials, they can find their way to that through your social media, I imagine. I've put it in the chat there as well.
Thank you very much. That is, I think
not leading them down a black hole if I tell them to Google you, am
I? No, I think Parasocials, apart from the mental health condition, I think we are the first thing that comes up.
Well, so this is an interesting thing because I can't help but think to myself sometimes when I first see your name after not hearing you for a while, say, Parasocials, the first thing it means to me in this Twitch world is the weird disconnect between the viewer and the streamer, and that kind of blending of worlds that occurs when you've been live streaming for nearly 2 years as I have. And on Twitch there's always this weird sense of parasocialism. I don't want to say that because it sounds like I'm disparaging socialism, but this weird kind of blending of worlds where this is a uniquely parasocial medium. YouTubers or podcasters, nobody has quite the mishmash of real and online life that a streamer has. So I can't help but think that whenever I see the name.
I think that's certainly something we like about the name. And the really interesting thing is we are a surprisingly un-offline band. I mean, like 2 or 3 members of the band don't really have social media. Like one of the members of the band, I'm not going to say who it is, carries around a little book of poetry and sort of stares at the sunset. That's it. That's what he'll do instead of going on.
But yeah, the opposite.
It's great. It's
the opposite of parasocial. Yeah.
But yeah, we don't really know that much about it. But when we picked the name, we picked it because we thought it was cool. That's just what any band will do. But we did like this. The parasocial, like it's a term that goes back to like the 30s or something. But it's probably only just become relevant again in the last 20 years because before it was just you thought people on the TV were your friends. I think you had to be fairly down the rabbit hole to think that, right? But in this world where you watch Twitch streamers, you have YouTubers you like, you can actually comment, you can interact with people on Twitter. The parasocial relationship is real nowadays, and
yeah.
I think it's kind of cool that we have sort of jumped in on that and trademarked it. We are the 4th thing to come up in Google, so that is pretty cool.
That is, in this day and age, with a term that is a term for something else, that is very impressive, I can tell you.
So yeah, if you search for us, you won't go down a rabbit hole unless you search for parasocial mental health condition. Then you might be there for a while.
Why not?
That's all I can say.
Folks at home, research about the actual mental health condition whilst you listen to some of the Parasocials music. How about that for an afternoon?
Oh no, I've been fact checked in the chat. I know when I say random facts that I'm not sure are true.
Always dangerous.
It was going to come back to bite me. But Yeah, it could be older. We don't know. Where are the Dead Sea Scrolls for the Parasocials? That's what I want to know.
For that matter, Dead Sea Scrolls is the new album, and you can listen to that. No, um, right,
That is a good album title.
right, you can have that. But
Thank
I
you. I'm putting it
will
on
be
the list.
expecting my 0.00001 cent royalty. That's my cut. I'm
You'll get
afraid
your blood money.
you can take that to my lawyers if you wish. Right. This, I think, has been just over an hour. So I think I'll probably leave you there. Is there anything else that you want to tell these folks, these listeners, these viewers?
I want to say thanks for listening. Been great. I wish I had a fact checker with me in my day-to-day life as I make up dates on the fly, pull statistics out of my brain. I wish there was a little voice that said, "Actually, mate, that was a few years later." And then I'm still going to lie about it, but at least then I know for the future.
Well, I don't know. Have you heard of this thing called the metaverse? I can tell you, it's going to be big.
This could be helpful. This could be helpful.
Right. It is lovely speaking to you as always, and I know that we're going to talk again very soon. Maybe we'll talk about conspiracies on here separately. Do a whole
That would
conspiracy
be fun.
fest.
I'll get the little whiteboard that, with the red tape. I feel like that's a conspiracy
Yes.
must, right?
Yeah, of course. TED Talk. Right. You take it easy. Take care of yourself.
Peace out.
Peace out. Bye for now. Hello everyone, how we doing? Wasn't that lovely? How are we all? It's a lovely chat there with Tomer Krail. You've got to go listen to the Parasocials, folks. They're fucking awesome. I'm going to put a couple of links in chat for you here. You can go check out. Gritty, lovely to see you. How you doing, Cat Pig? Bisky, welcome in. Folks, if you're just joining, you've just missed a chat with myself and Tomer Krail from the Parasocials. But don't fear, because you've got the VOD and you've also got a chance to, I say a chance, it's going to be there forever. In a couple of days' time, about 24 hours' time, so we'll have the audio version, the podcast version ready for you all to listen to as well. Crimpy coffee, lovely to see you all. Folks, go and give the Parasocials a sub and a like on YouTube there. Whilst we've got them, go and give a follow to the lovely Surfer McGritty as well. Hope you're doing good, mate. Bisky, you can ask me a question. I'm here for about another 10 minutes. Ask me anything, folks. How do I feel about Elon Musk buying Twitter? Fine. It's a bit like, I'll tell you what it's a bit like. It's a bit like if a car jackknifes off a motorway into a ditch, sets on fire, burns to a crisp, and then somebody comes along and pisses on it. That dude that pisses on the car is Elon Musk. Do you see what I mean there? Does anybody understand that metaphor? Somebody tell me if they understand that metaphor. What could go wrong with a deranged billionaire taking total control of one of the most important media? You say most important media. Is it media? or is it a very popular place on the internet? My whole thing with Elon Musk buying Twitter is this. I don't know how it could possibly get worse. It's already a dumpster fire of hate. And I think he might just kill it. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen, is that he's just going to kill it. And I think the next, however many months or maybe year that he has it is going to be interesting whilst he puts all of these policies into play, pay for this and get access to this. But aside from that, I think pretty soon it will just be gone, and that will be that. I'm going to put a couple more links in chat, folks. Go and follow the Parasocials on Facebook. Another important place on the internet. Here on Instagram. And again, you can see the video for their fantastic banger of a new single, KSG, here. Biscuit, go ahead, feel free to put a link in chat. It's great for brain dead politicians who do slogans instead of politics. Yeah, I think Twitter's become a place where it's mainly used for promotional stuff. I wouldn't be on there if I wasn't shit posting and getting you lovely, generous people to interact with my shit. Interact with my shit. I do have a way with words, don't I? But yeah, I think by and large, that's what it's for now. People are flocking to Instagram, aren't they? And people actually spend time on Instagram for pleasure. They don't come off, I don't think, for the most part, come off Instagram having thought, right, I want to die now. I don't think that's the general reception of Instagram. I think they generally think, oh, okay, that's interesting, or I saw something, or I was entertained. Not I'm now questioning whether or not to get the vaccine, for instance. And maybe that's my naivety. And I know there are conspiracy theorists on Instagram, certainly. But I think it's still managing to be a place that has some kind of value outside of that nastiness. Now, folks, can I also ask you, before we get out of here, I would be very, very much grateful if you could do a couple of things for me. If you are on Twitter, see, this is where it gets to the marketing part. Are you ready for this? The Zoom cam's in the wrong place. This is I usually make a point to put this square on my face before we get started with this, but it can just be there. That kind of looks, all right, it makes my mustache look like it's a kind of, I don't know what. You can imagine that I'm somebody with just a mustache rather than a goatee. I'm talking shit. Give Britain on the Rocks a follow on Twitter if you can. And it would also be fantastic if you were able to give me a follow on Twitter too. Every little helps. Trying to build an audience, folks, on the interwebs. Right, I think I'm going to leave it there. As I say, if you want to listen to the podcast, maybe you've missed my chat there with Tomer Krail of the Parasocials. It's going to be on Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcast in about 24 hours time. Just search for Britain on the Rocks. The VOD is here as well. And in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to be speaking to another guest about their experience in this political chaos called the United Kingdom. Right. I'm going to see who we can raid. I don't keep a good whitelist, cat pig. You know this by now, come on. I'm an old man when it comes to all this shit. Right, who's out there? who raided James from the internet the last time I was on here. Let's go with Emmy Vogue. The lovely Emmy Vogue. She is very positive, very fun. She'll be playing something, I'm not sure what, so we'll head over there. Just before I go, if I can just ask for one last time, if anybody's on Twitter, give these accounts a follow. This is where I'm going to be posting stuff about Britain on the Rocks and other interesting things that I'm doing. I say interesting, that's obviously subjective. So head over there if you feel like it. Right. Thank you very much for joining me today. It's been lovely speaking to Tomer Krail. Always a pleasure. I appreciate you dropping your positive messages into chat as well. Let's head over to Emmy Vogue. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. Catpig, always a pleasure. Entrama, Surfer, lovely to see you, Gritty, as always. Grimpy Coffee. What's we got here? Got Tomer Krail in chat as well. Again, lovely to chat to you. Kelochi. Folks, give Emmy Vogue a big hi, and I'll be over there for a little bit as well. Let's see what she's up to. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.